Well, we will call the meeting to order. If you guys would stand, we'll do the prayer. Scott will do that for us, and then the Pledge of Allegiance.
All right, let's pray. Heavenly Father, we just thank you so much for this wonderful day that you've given us, Lord. We just look to you for guidance, Lord. We just thank you for your wisdom, Lord. Just pour it out upon us, Lord, that we can just serve our community, Father. Just pray that your will would be done today in all that we do and say. Thank you so much for what you've done for each of us. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Amen. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hello, Mr. Williams.
Morning.
Our Larry gets set down.
For you.
Okay, our first item of business is the minutes from the August 8th, 2022 regular meeting. Those are in your packet, and you'll review them. And we take a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve last month's minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Ms. Darla, if you would do the roll, please.
Okay. Williams,
Yes.
Durr,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Berger,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes. Okay, our next item is a report from Pryor Area Chamber of Commerce President Barbara. She is not here, so we will table that and go to item 4, which is a report from Jenny with Main Street.
So my report 4 and 5 on the agenda is going to slightly be combined, but I will use 4 as the opportunity to go over what should be in your agenda packets that you got last week. And that's going to be where it's titled the Pryor Main Street Downtown Development Overview of the organization. So just as a reminder, I know I come and I report monthly about what we do because we do a lot people don't realize that we do behind the scenes. So I wanted to give an overview of our mission statement, our vision statement, how we are an organization that is directly tied to downtown development. That is our sole purpose and that is our sole focus. Last time that I presented, I talked about the Main Street 4-point approach and spoke a little bit about how every Main Street across America is formulated differently. There's different ways that they are funded. There's different ways that they take this 4-point approach and utilize it into their community, but that's all based off of their community need, and that's why it's so individualized. Then I went into the background of our organization, so it kind of gives you a little bit of an inside view of where we came from, where we are now, and how we've gone from where we were then to all the things that we're doing now that we didn't even know that would be possible. So that gave a little bit of a breakdown for that. And then starting on the bottom of that page and going on to the second, and if you want to read these, if you weren't able to read them beforehand, you can read them as I'm up here talking, but it gives a breakdown of all of these things that we do as an organization that fits within that 4-point approach so that you can see as an outsider that's not necessarily attached to the Main Street community how we're using our organization to be able to hit these national standards that they set, and we are now nationally accredited because we're able to do all of those things. So just a few years ago, we were in what they called, it's essentially like a probation period because we weren't able to have the resources to be able to hit the state requirements, and now we're fully back as a designated Main Street program. And we have been for a couple of years, and that's when the changes have really happened. And then now we have our national accreditation. So it lays out different things that we do that directly benefit downtown development, downtown reinvestment. If you go to the next page over, it gives a breakdown of 2021 reinvestment report and 2020 reinvestment report. 2022's isn't out yet because the year isn't over. But this is something that Main Street is required to turn in every month to state, the Oklahoma Department of Commerce, so that they can keep track of what our downtown is doing. That middle number is private reinvestment, And it's kind of exciting to see that number go up because it kind of proves that the more that we do, the more that the downtown building owners, the business owners are willing to reinvest into their community here. It also, which is one thing that's kind of a fun little brag, it shows the volunteer hours that Main Street has provided our community at an obvious no charge to the city. But if you go to the next page, towards the middle, it gives a number that the independent sector, they provide a value to a volunteer hour. And so Main Street alone has contributed back into our city over $500,000. And so that's something that's been directly a benefit to our downtown corridor. I also, just for education purposes and transparency purposes, I wanted to lay out how we get our funding. A lot of people think that we're funded through a large grant from the state or, something largely from the city, and we're not. The majority of our funding comes from fundraisers. It comes from partnerships with local businesses, partnerships with the city, and the majority of our budget is self-funded. And then I also wanted to break down that we do get 10% of the hotel motel tax, but also keep in mind that that piece has to go back directly for projects. And the way that that works is at the beginning of every year, we give a letter, basically a proposal letter that just generalizes what we're about, what we plan to roundabout use those funds for. And then at the end, we report with more direct numbers, and then they can make the decision then whether to fund it the next year. So that is a way that we're broken down. And then the pages after that is just a reminder. I'm up here every month telling you guys about the grants that we write, so shouldn't be too much of a surprise, but it's a reminder of the TSET grant that we were granted and contributions from that, and how all of that has to be designated to the streetscape plan, and none of that actually comes to Main Street. Some people think that it comes to Main Street. It doesn't. It's something that we wrote on behalf of the city for our downtown development plan. And so that was something that we also help manage with the TSET grant, and Ariana could tell you it's really meticulous and they really want to keep track of all of that. And so that's something that we have taken over, specifically me, to be able to manage that on behalf of the city of Pryor. And then the one that I'm writing now, it's not technically due until November 30th, so I don't want to speak to say that we've received it, but I just want to give an idea of the amount of time it takes to write it, and if, the possibility of us getting it. That's the TAP grant that I've spoken to you guys about. And that's what that last little chart is, and it's more broken down. And that also is written on behalf of the city of Pryor. And Main Street, again, doesn't receive any funds from that. But we're the ones facilitating that and seeking out the partners, and going to be the ones managing that from this point forward. So that's basically just a reminder of who we are, what we do. Now more than ever, Main Street's vision has been aligned with the city's, and we're at a point where essentially our programs, our projects, our expectations, everything that we do has evolved. So we're at a point where our resources need to evolve, which leads me into number 5. So on the next, I don't know if you need to do
Well, hang on,
like an
does anybody
official.
have any questions for Jenny on the
far?
first,
I know.
first part?
I just have a quick question about the TAP grant. You said it was due in November. Is it the letter of intent that's due or the full
The
thing?
letter of intent is due the 30th of this month.
Okay, awesome.
Yes, and then they said essentially that they'll come back and kind of go back and forth with you, which is really helpful. And then the actual full application, where I would need the letter from the EDTA, where I would need more specific things, would be November 30th.
Awesome.
And they won't tell you if you've received that until spring of next year. So that's kind of a waiting game, which that's kind of normal. They give that time to do that. So, but yeah, it's not technically due until November 30th. So I
Okay,
wanted to make
gotcha.
sure that people knew it's not received yet. It's an application.
So Jenny, whatever you need from signatures, letter, writing a letter, just forward that request.
Okay.
We have it.
Okay, I will. I will definitely. I've sent some things, and I know Adam's been working on them. And so we've already got that ball rolling, because the end of November is not too far away. So we've been trying to be proactive and get that started. And I know that Adam's aware, so it'll be great to have that support.
Okay. And our next item is discuss, possibly recommend council action regarding approval of a memorandum of understanding with Pryor Main Street.
So, item number 4, the background of us, is just a reminder, like I said, to lead us into number 5, which is where I ended the last little segment in saying that everything that Main Street has done has evolved, even in the last year, and our resources need to evolve. And we want them to come from something that the city of Pryor voters have said that they believe is important. And so I know it's been in discussion a lot with the EDTA meetings and just the community forums, and when we've had people up here to present to you guys, downtown development is important to a large majority of the population, and they put it to a vote, and the vote supported that. And so with us being an organization that is solely focused on downtown development, and there is that resource, we want to be able to work with you guys to find a solution, because we've done it until this point and got to this point with very limited resources. So imagine if we actually had the community support that our voters are saying we want to have for our downtown development. So the next piece of paper is the proposal. That's what it is at the beginning, and I'm hoping you had the chance over the weekend to just read that. It just gives the first page is a little bit of a background of how we've more than ever worked with the EDTA, which you guys know that. You've seen it every month. Any committees, any type of communication we've had back and forth with each other. I know that we've had the mayor and Adam come and sit in on a board meeting, and they were able to really deep dive into everything that has to do with Main Street, our financials, and everything that's included, just for that transparency. And so I don't want to fully read the background, assuming you guys have read the background, but it does give it a little bit more of a breakdown of how we've worked well together, which next leads us to a proposal and a memo of understanding of some things that we believe would be a solution for us to get to the next level. A, B, and C was something that my board deemed as important, and that's why Sean's here. He's a new face here, but he's been on our board for 6 years. He's seen it from the beginning. He's seen it to where we are now, and so it seemed more appropriate since A, B, and C, well, all of this was formulated by the board, but he tackle the first little bit of this, and then I'm going to go ahead and follow up after him. So I'm going to introduce him now, too. This is Sean Barrett. I'll just kind of stand here to the side. I don't know.
Hi, Sean.
Hey, Sean Barrett, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. As she said, I've been on the board for the last 6 years, and we've seen a lot of changes, and we've seen a lot of improvements over the last 6 years. We've had a vision for Pryor Main Street, and Jenny has done a great job of expressing that vision, detailing that vision, and getting people on board for that vision. And the streetscape is part of that vision. And through the streetscape plan, she's been spending long hours grant writing, and which the writing helps downtown, the grants help downtown, but it does not fund Main Street. As she said before, Main Street is funded directly by partners and fundraisers. So in A, under their Memorandum of Understanding, the Main Street Board is requesting the EDTA to give a recommendation to the City Council to help compensate Jenny's time she is spending in writing grants. And then under B, if we receive the grant, compensation to manage that grant. This funding will help equip Main Street to pay a salary, and right now Meredith is getting paid by the Cherokee Nation, but that can end at any time, and so it allows us to be able to step in a salary and fund Meredith, and that way we will continue to grow the partnerships and do the fundraisers, and that way we can continue to grow downtown businesses. Under C, we will continue to provide updates and reports as she's doing today. We will continue to do that. But this will just allow the Main Street to free up some resources. So with that, I will turn it back over to Jenny. Thank you.
Thank you.
So he wanted to speak on behalf of the whole board, so that was something that was formulated by everyone, and he took time out today to come and report that. Like he said, Meredith is assumed to be under our payroll. She is not. And so whenever Cherokee Nation might decide, oh, we're done with funding, that leaves me being the only one that would be underneath in our budget, and which means I might not be able to have that time spent on grant writing, and then we're kind of left in the air, and all the stewardship of the money isn't necessarily going towards downtown development for grant writing. And so if that happens, that leaves me in a position where I might have to take back over directing. And so we're just essentially trying to set us up where we can have the extra resource, because look at how much we've done since December, since we've had her.
Yep.
And so that's A, B, and C. And then before I move on, is there any questions on that piece?
I don't believe so.
Okay. And then D, so Fund 68, which I know you guys are all aware of, that's the Main Street Fund that was voted on and approved by the voters of the city of Pryor to be able to fund downtown development, and I believe that's the verbiage they used in that. It's the Main Street Fund. We have never tapped into that for our organization specifically, but like I said, we're evolving and we need those resources, and we have those resources, which is unlike a lot of other communities. And right now, we do use pieces of it for the grant writing, which is why obviously we're not gonna ask for the entire bit. We're asking for a portion to be able to support us. Right now, as you guys know, it generates around $10,000 per month, and I do know that's only been getting higher. And if we're being good stewards with this money, that's also only gonna get higher. And so, under that reporting, it could be formulated, obviously with discussion of you guys, but similar to how Hotel Motel is, you give your letter of intent, and then at the end is a very detailed every 12 months, and then you choose to continue, you choose not to continue. And that's essentially how we felt as a board would best set us up to take us to the next level. And so we're not an organization that just falls short because we run out of resources. We don't want to not complete projects. We don't want to have that reputation. So if you have any questions after that, I'm here, Sean's here.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
This is something that I think we've all been working towards to kind of formalize some of the partnerships that we've created and have been growing over the years. And I think what Main Street has done downtown has been very amazing and has really helped the downtown area. And I just want to make sure that I'm right on this. With the 50%, you're talking about 50% of what goes in each month.
Right, right.
So I would point out to the trust that that still leaves those funds that have built up over the last couple of years in the account for us to use or for others to use for bigger projects. This would just help fund their overall operations and allow them to go out and do some of the bigger things. But I am very interested in doing this, and I think it's a good use of EDTA funds. I think that we do need to reach out and have Kim review a draft of the MOU.
We have
and
done,
review the bond wording to make sure that everything in the MOU matches up with what's allowable in the bond wording.
so part of the language on the page, right underneath the word proposal, that language, resources used to facilitate, plan, create new jobs, establish new businesses and/or commercial facilities and entities having the city as beneficiary via sales tax and economic benefit. That's language that came directly out of the bond and out of that definition in the bond. Kim has reviewed this draft.
Okay.
And he has given a thumbs up just as a reply to an email. One of the things that I might, I'm not a voting member on this body, but one of the things that I might encourage you to do is instead of perhaps doing a 50% of the monthly take of the sales tax, we don't know what that would be. Right now, 50% of that would be somewhere over $5,000 a month. In a year, it might be substantially more than that. Hopefully so. In a year, it might be flat. We really don't know. I think it might be wise to maybe consider an amount that we could fund Pryor Main Street rather than a percentage. And that might be something that you'll want to discuss. I would ask Jenny, is there an amount that looks appropriate for your organization?
So when
going
we
forward?
landed on the 50% number, that was with the understanding that it was going to be around 10,000 per month. Right now, it's actually generating more than that. But if we back it, back down to the 10,000 per month, then we would be comfortable with the 5,000 per month. We feel like that would help us with taking all of the things in that background sheet where I reported in number 4, taking it to the next level, being able to introduce things within our program and be able to support all of the things that's at the top of this proposal. And like I said, that would be shown through the letter of intent and then the reporting. I'm more than just the monthly.
Okay.
What's in Fund 68 presently?
$282,000.89.
And how much of that is encumbered for the matching grant?
Do you want me to answer that, or do you? Want me to-
Please.
Okay, so almost a year ago, I requested, just to be safe, we had plans for the TAP grant, which required 20%, and at that time, the 20% was $140,000, which is what was approved for to be earmarked for that. However, since we were able to write the TSET grant, we're able to take $102,000 from the TSET grant, and that can act as our matching. So actually, I don't even need that 100.
So I think the last time we asked,
Yeah.
you were still getting
Yeah, and it's
clarification on
confirmed,
whether
yes.
it would.
It's
Okay,
confirmed, so out of that, instead of the 140, because I was able to write that grant and get received with our other community partners, it's only gonna be 65, so around that. I mean, it is.
So of the 282, then about 65 would be encumbered.
Yeah,
So what happens when your bond expires?
That's in 2034.
So what happens?
So what happens when the
Because we don't
bond
want them to
expires,
build their-
or when it's paid off?
We don't want them to build up their organization and have to have this money, and then that bond is paid off and boom, you ain't get that money anymore.
in our kind of, history of Main Street, we've done a lot with the little, and we've been good stewards of the little that we've gotten. And so we have that in mind. We knew that it was the year 2034. And so with our letter of intent, we would be able to show how we're going to have more community support, which is how we've gone from 6 partners to 91 partners now in the last couple of years, which means way more funding than we've ever had. But that's because we were able to introduce new benefits, new projects, and complete them and show that we're able to complete projects and not just say that we're going to do something. So we would use that money to make sure that we're continuing that, but with bigger and more impactful things to gain more community partners, to gain better fundraising. So we're not just going to use it to blow it. We're going to use it to set us up basically in succession planning after that bond is over.
And not to say it can't be revoted, but,
Yeah.
That's
It's just-
correct. That's correct. So, I mean, the citizens would decide that, but
Right.
but we build one bond upon another, I think is wise to consider.
this would also be a great way to show that those funds are being reinvested and are
Right.
being used downtown, instead of them just sitting there and building up with no
Visual impact.
visual impact
Right.
at this point.
And that's how, go ahead.
One of the things that I do know, and that you also know, because, and that Ariana knows, because there are some who kind of keep track of what grants are available. Incredible amounts of grant monies available right now. And some of those monies are federal monies, some of those monies are state monies. But to be able to have somebody on board with your organization who is paid to do that work, because it's time consuming, it's
Right.
laborious, it's time consuming, and so, but that's how we do that. But
And-
it's good timing.
It is.
It's good timing
yes.
to focus in and trying to secure the different grant opportunities that are there.
And we are housed underneath the state program, which means Main Street has exclusive access to the trainings that come with the state Main Street program, who do this all over the state. And so, an example, in November, I'm going to a training just on grant writing. So at the end of it, I'll be able to have that knowledge. So it's going to something that it's specifically being trained on things like this. And then we're able to build up, like you said, it shows an impact, it shows a visual impact. And if it were to come down to a vote to continue it, say in 2034, it's less likely to be voted in again if people don't see anything happening. So this is us trying to make sure that people actually see something, so that reputation of, it's a lot of talk, but not a lot of action coming from, you know, any entity of our city or organization. This is the resource we have to help mitigate that, and not a lot of other communities have that chance.
I have a quick clarifying question. On item A of the MOU, it states EDTA will compensate Pryor Main Street for time spent writing and applying for such grants. Is that the 50% that's going to compensate, or is that something totally separate? I just want clarification.
So essentially, A, B, and C would be separate. D would kind of go, A would be the number that was tossed around is going forward for any grant writing. 1% of whatever the grant that would be granted to the city could be compensated to help pad our budget to be able to have Meredith along. Because if Cherokee Nation says, nope, she's gone, and then I'm back to directing, and there's not gonna be that representative for the downtown streetscape plan. So A would be for the actual application, and then B would be if it would be funded, and that's where we were looking at 5% of whatever that grant would be.
Is this the MOU?
Yeah, it says proposal, yeah.
So, I mean, like, I'm not a voting member, but I'm a little confused. Like B, MOU will outline compensation details. What you just said about 1% and all that is, there's nothing in here.
Yeah, we can definitely add
I
that.
mean, you need to, we need to put that in there so we know what you guys are voting for, that you're taking to the council.
Right.
So the motion is a proposal that an MOU be written, basically am
Okay,
I
well, that-
understanding this
Yes,
correct?
yeah, and so.
Because your line item says council action regarding approval of a MOU. So your motion may need to,
So I think we'll end up amending that
Amend it,
motion
right.
to
because,
creating a more detailed and
Yeah.
formal MOU.
yeah,
And we
And
can add
then-
in that part D where it's a more, if you guys decide on that stationary number rather than the percentage, we can add that all in there, but obviously it's best to start with a discussion.
So just for clarification, because I think I heard you say 1% and 5%. So the 1% would go toward line item A, and the 5% would be line item B, right? And so to pay that, because I know for grants, sometimes you are able to write in that admin fee, but sometimes we're
Yeah,
not
like
able
the
to.
Tap, you're not able to.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right. So let's just, to throw out a scenario, if you do get that TAP funding, the 1%, and then if you get granted, then the 5% would come out of what's generated, not out of this 5% or 50% monthly thing, it would come out of the
Right.
bigger
Yes.
account,
Yeah.
correct? Okay.
so $100,000 grant, how much you get? 6,000?
Yeah. And we're writing it, we're facilitating any community input that's required for it, we're seeking the letters of support, we're working with the community partners, and then after that, it's typically for projects that big, a multi-year process to manage the grant.
What's your range of grant you're going for, if you don't mind me asking? 100,000 to a million?
Well, according to the streetscape budget, like the second phase is 1.1 million. So that, it depends on the grant, what grant funding comes out, because
And
like
it
the
would
TAP
be-
is maximum 700,000. So.
It would be broken down like that, just like we did phase one, we had to do the first one, we got 203,000. Then the one that I'm writing now would be to cover the rest of phase one, which I broke that down in that, the last couple pages of the background information that you guys had. And so it would depend grant to grant, what it would be.
Would you envision the 1% for writing the grant? Would then, and then if you receive the grant, the 5%, would that 1% be accounted for in the 5%? So it would be 4% of additional money? Or would it end up being 6% of the total grant?
That's something we can discuss, whatever you would be comfortable with. Typically, it's you pay at the beginning, and then whatever is granted, it's something separate.
Okay.
But, and typically, grant writers are paid 10%, not the 5%. So just keep that in mind, too. We're just trying to make sure that we're trying to set us up for success, especially going forward with our projects. But also, we're keeping in mind the EDTA's goal of having that in that account. So that's why we didn't ask for the full 10%.
I'd be curious to know if the 1% and 5% would be out of the total, because for example, you got 200 plus
Right.
thousand for the streetscape
Yeah.
for phase one. Is the 1% and 5% based on the grant funding, which would be 100 plus thousand, or the whole total, which would be all this matching and stuff?
In my mind, when I did that math, it would be what's actually granted. So
Okay.
example, that the T-set, we raised $103,000 and they granted us $102,000. So that $102,000 would be where the
Awesome.
percentages would come in.
Okay.
So that's us still putting in the work to do the half and half, and we're still raising that other money. And, but the percentages for that would be what we're actually seeking. That's not on the matching portion, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it has to be, because if I'm putting in money,
Yep.
and if the city's putting in
Right.
money, and then GRDA's calling me, asking me, hey, can I put money towards this? I would feel like you would be double dipping on
Yeah.
on us all if you put in that money towards your percentage. I mean, that's just the way I would look at it right now.
It's awarded.
It would just be based on
Yeah.
what's awarded. And I think those are things, details that we can work into the MOU.
Right, just clear
and-
language.
And clarify that. But I think that's something we deal with with the next meeting, with actually having the formal MOU document in a draft form for us to look at. The only thing I would say in addition to that is to go back to what Mayor said earlier, based on what it is right now, and we're talking about a 12-month period. So this is something that every 12 months, we would look at again and either renew under those same terms, or we would amend those terms for the next 12-month period. But to go back to what Mayor said about we don't know where that is going to be at, and I think to recognize some of that work that they've already done, I would say we would probably for D, look at doing like 50% of the monthly revenue and start that with a, $25,000 to $30,000 initial outlay to EDTA or to Main Street. And that $5,000 a month, we say that will be no less than $60,000 annually. So that would be, $85,000 to $90,000.
What'd you talk about, Willis? What'd you say?
That would be a way to do that, and makes sense to go ahead and get in my mind, it makes sense to go ahead and get an MOU written and bring that back to, make the recommendation that the MOU be written, send that on to council, that the MOU be written, and that, then bring that back to EDTA for discussion.
And I would think you would put it on the timeline, this initial one, from now till June 30th.
Yeah.
And then get on the fiscal year with everybody.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. So to make sure that I'm clear, just to adjust this, A, add in the 1%, so it's a finalized number. B, the 5%. C is staying the same, but reporting in July, so it's the fiscal year.
I just think you need more detail. I mean, because last thing you want is to not be transparent
Yeah,
to your citizens. So when you talk about MOU outline compensation details, you need to provide those details, what that needs to be. I mean, and I would recommend having city attorney review that once you get it done
okay.
and get his blessing before we even act on it.
We'll
I
sit
mean,
down with him and we'll ask him to write the MOU.
and that's probably what needs to take place
Yep.
is to have our attorney write that for you, and then you guys are gonna go back and forth on what you
Okay.
feel should be in there. And then if the attorney says, yeah, it's great, because it's like I tell my attorney, I'm the one going to jail, not you, so you better fight it for me. So,
Okay,
unless he wants to be my bunkmate.
Yeah.
so add in those details to A and B. C, continue with the reporting, I do it monthly. And then D, add in,
That we would provide initial funding of $25,000
okay,
annually, and then 50% of the total revenues into Fund 68 per month,
okay,
for an amount to be at least $60,000 on an annual basis.
okay. And then I would report based on that annually,
Yes, ma'am.
similar to hotel motel. Okay, I can do that.
One more thing. Do you have a map of what you guys actually encompass? Because I'm still kind of,
Like
what
our-
is Main Street? Are you from Elliott to the highway, First to First?
Yes, yeah. that's
Is that exactly what
Yeah.
Main Street covers? Okay.
Yep, that's exactly it. So it's a pretty broad
Right,
downtown.
pretty big brush
We're
through.
trying to take it section by section, and that's why the streetscape plan is phased out the way that
Okay.
it is.
So where is the western boundary again?
69.
Is it 69?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I always thought it was 69 to Elliott, first to first, is what we,
That's what I thought it was. I just didn't know if it actually included the other corner to the railroad track or if it was just
Oh, yeah.
straight 69.
Yes, it ends there where the chamber corner is.
yeah.
I want to thank you for all you guys do. Your program is really, truly excellent. I'm so excited that the city does have an opportunity to bless you guys with resources, and so I'm excited about the future. Great work for all of you. Thanks.
So I think the motion would be amended to discuss, possibly recommend, I don't think we need to say council yet, action regarding creation of a memorandum of understanding with Pryor Main Street,
Using city's attorney.
using the city's attorney.
Okay, and I'm here to answer any other questions. If there's anything that you would like me to answer while I'm here before we go into the next step, I'm here to do that, and Sean's here too, so if there's anything. No?
I think we're good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
So if
you,
we could get a
guys.
motion with that amended item.
I'll make a motion with the amended, but I don't have the exact language to say. Is that okay?
Yeah, got it written down.
And then, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you very much. Okay, Ms. Darla, if you would do the roll, please.
Durr,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Berger,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, very much. Our next item is discuss and possibly recommend council action regarding granting sports economic impact grant to Pryor Youth Baseball, which I do not believe we have. a grant from.
Yeah, I have not received anything, or you have not received anything, and we've gave them ample time to present some stuff, so
When I checked again last night, and they had not submitted anything.
I know we don't have a timeline on these grants, but they have the opportunity to get them, so they know how.
The next one is Pryor Youth Football. I have spoken with them. They are working still with the mayor's office, I believe, on their lease for the facility out there, so they politely declined to apply at this point because they had some other things they had to figure out before they came in and applied. And then soccer, we talked about that last month. We made some changes to what the amount was, so everything remains largely the same. If you'll remember, I'm president of the Soccer Association, so I'm just going to make the presentation and then abstain from any voting. It is Mays County Soccer Association, and I think if you look in the packet, it's stapled in here from back to front, so you'd have to go all the way to the next to last page and kind of work your way back. Or mine is stapled that way.
Well, bless my heart. Can't get good help these days. So sorry about that.
Oh, it's great. We operate a facility out on Gaither Road, 400 Gaither Road. It's been the soccer complex since the late 90s. Where do registered players come from? We do have registration from all of Mays County, plus we bring in a couple of other players from other counties that don't have soccer groups. Our ages are 4 years up to 18-year-olds, but we do have a division that could go as high as 19. Our season there's a spring season from March to May, and then a fall season from September to November, so we're in the middle of that fall season. The average number of registered players in fall of '21, there were 210 registered players. In fall of '22, there were 200 registered. In the spring of '22, we had 248 registered. Fall is always down slightly because of football, and this year we have flag football. I'll talk about that a little bit in a minute. The number of games played at the complex, including our U6 and U8 groups, we have between 100 and 120 games at the complex. Those are typically on Saturdays. The season's 8 to 10 weeks long, and it's typically played over those 8 Saturdays. We do have some Sunday games this year. Where do our opposing teams come from? We play Claremore, Owasso, Broken Arrow, Bartlesville, Tulsa, Tahlequah, Coweta, Skiatook, Collinsville, and Grove. We added Grove in this year. We're working to do some things with some other schools. We've talked to Verdigris and Catoosa. Verdigris. We're playing their team there this next Sunday, and then they'll have a game over here. Those are a couple of new groups that we have. As far as what do we need, the last time I was in, we were talking about nets and some movable goals. Since that time, we've had some plumbing issues. We talked about some plumbing updates, but I think I've heard our last water bill was $1,700. All it took was during the practices when we're not using the facilities a lot, one of the urinals stuck on open, and it just ran for a couple of days, maybe about a week. And then one of the toilets, the flapper disintegrated and just let it flow through there. So I've gotten a quote from some plumbers, $2,600 to go in and rework all of the toilets and urinals and replace the ones that need to be replaced. On netting, we have a U14 and U16 field that there's a drainage ditch behind. The balls roll over the hill and go in there. We've had a lot of kids trying to get down into that ditch to retrieve balls, and they get sticker bushes and all kinds of things stuck to them, ticks. The estimated cost to put in some poles and some netting is $2,000. Installing a pole or starting the installation of some lighting for our practice fields right now. Since they've expanded daylight savings time, it's fairly nice. But when we hit November 13th, I think is when daylight savings time takes effect again, or stops, whatever it is. It's suddenly dark at 4 o'clock. It's hard to have kids get out of school, show up out there and practice without any kind of lighting. We have some lighting on the clubhouse itself, but it doesn't really shine out. We've talked with some electricians that have given us some quotes in the past. And for about $6,000, we've already got some poles that I'd probably talk to Mub about coming out and look at just to make sure they are sound. Getting those in the dirt, and then the electrical to hang sports LED lights is about $6,100 per pole. So we would be doing one of those poles to encompass our practice fields to get some light. And then there is some trim. Like I said, that facility was built in the late 90s. There's some metal trim that is missing now and starting to cause some water infiltration in the clubhouse, and then some anti-bird nesting foam that needs to be put into the highs of the metal, and that cost is about $2,000. So the total cost of our immediate needs projects is about $12,785, of which we're asking EDTA for $5,000. The club does have the funds to do the remainder of that. Probably our first project would be the bathroom corrections and then the LED lights. But like the other groups, we will be making a request to Hotel Motel and to Jock Mayer for some of that funding. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those questions. Oh, I was going to talk about flag football. So flag football is new for Pryor. There's a group that's starting that. They practice, or they play their games out next to the soccer facility where the Little League football practices. Little League football on Saturdays is at a stadium playing. It creates a kind of a traffic issue out there with a bunch of the cars, and it's really full. I've talked with the gentleman that's running that club. They've been great to work with. Soccer board and his board is on board with making sure that everybody's using the facilities to the maximum benefit of the kids. We're opening our concession stand early on those Saturdays so that they can have a place to buy from. They're working with us to keep the bathrooms clean. So it's been good. Football has allowed them to use their facilities or their practice fields, and we've worked out an agreement to mow some additional areas that there can be parking. So I think part of this too is the groups working together. That's football, soccer, and flag football that are kind of working together to make sure that's a quality complex area and that the kids are taken care of, not just necessarily one sport being independent of its own. And I think that's what we're seeing, with softball and baseball at their complex. So that's the proposal. If you guys have any questions, please let me know. Okay, otherwise, we could take a motion on granting Mays County Soccer $5,000 under the same terms as the other clubs where they'll spend the money and then bring the receipts for reimbursement.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, Ms. Darla, if you would take the roll.
Moore,
Yes.
Berger,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Anderson,
Abstain.
Williams,
Yes.
Dirk.
Yes.
Okay. On to our next item, which is discuss and possibly recommend council action regarding transfer of $50,000 from the general fund number 203 to the EDTA fund number 98. Actually, I want to back up to number 6. This says recommend, it said recommend council action. I don't believe, since those are EDTA funds that are already in our account, it would not require council action.
But that is correct.
So, so then on to number 7, discuss possibly recommend council action regarding transfer of $50,000 from the general fund number 203 to the EDTA fund number 98. This is similar to what we had the special meeting for before the end of the fiscal year. These funds are allocated in a budget by the city, and once we request that $50,000 be allocated and moved over to our account, those become within the purview of the EDTA to spend on economic development within Pryor.
That's correct.
So, and Mayor did have $50,000 in the budget, and it was approved at the last council meeting for that $50,000 for EDTA, so this would be to formally request that that be moved over to our fund. We could get a motion to approve that.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Darla, if you do the roll, please.
Berger,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Yes.
Williams, Dirk,
Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
Thank you guys very much, and ladies. Our next item is review of financial report. Mayor Lees.
So, the Fund 98, which is the EDTA fund, with the 50,000, and with the 50,000, that's 100,000, and then there is the 34,000 that remains there, then that will total up to around $134,000. That EDTA will have the
130, okay, sorry, I'm sorry, I was making a note.
134,000 or so that EDTA would have the ability to grant. That's pretty cool.
Yes.
Other financial things, I'd be willing to take any questions that y'all might have.
Is that the fund that the soccer and baseball and football and softball, that's the fund that that's going to be coming out of?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Well, I was going to bring this up during new business, but I'm realizing there's not a new business on the agenda, so I'll ask right now if that's okay. I'm presenting last Friday on behalf of the Trails Alliance, and someone asked me, who is going to maintain the trails? And my answer was, whoever's jurisdiction that trail falls under will maintain that trail. And that was a huge negative thing, because the response back was, well, the city can't even maintain our current sidewalks. How are they going to maintain trails? And so I wanted to bring up to this group to see, because I want to share a quote real quick too. It says, sidewalks serve as the front steps to the city, activating streets socially and economically. And I do know that there is a line item in the budget for sidewalk projects. I'm just curious of how those projects are identified and if they can be presented here so that there's some sort of accountability. But I also was doing some research of what other cities do, and the city of Lincoln, which is quite a bit bigger than us, it's in Nebraska, but I want to pass out these cool brochures because I think it's important that the city provides something similar, just so our citizens do know that we are being good stewards of the sidewalk, and there is sidewalks, and there's a plan to actually renovate them and what that looks like and that type of stuff. And so I just wanted to bring that up here, and I realized that, that could be a part of maybe a city planner's role to identify or create such a program. So yeah, my question is, how can we, or how do we find out about the sidewalk projects as far as what's budgeted? And then is there any update on hiring a city planner or getting that job posted somewhere?
Well, Mayor, if I may first, I would like to go on record with saying I think that the city is doing a good job and doing everything they can to address the sidewalks. There have been some road projects that have led to some issues with sidewalks, but I think as a whole, Pryor is doing a very good job of the sidewalks.
So we will take $60,000 normally each year, and that sidewalk work is funded out of the street and drainage part of the sales tax that's collected into the city. So the sidewalks that have been done this past year, there have been sidewalks that was done on Van Street in a residential area. There's sidewalk that was done right across from Pete's Drive-In. There's also sidewalk, actually, it's the new sidewalk that will go in front of the library will be funded by the city. That's not funded by the bond, and so that will be funded by the city. We try to identify sidewalks that need to be replaced and then go ahead and replace the sidewalks. With our Complete Streets ordinance, when a developer comes in and puts in a development, then the sidewalks are required that the developer put in the sidewalks. So when a citizen makes a comment, how are they going to maintain trails? They can't even maintain sidewalks. Well, I wonder how many square foot of sidewalks there are in the city to actually maintain. How many square foot of sidewalks are going to, or of trails are going to need to be maintained. So we're a work in progress, absolutely. And
Yes.
so we do, and you also made a comment about would this be part of a city planner's job? Absolutely, absolutely it was. It would be. So that is the city planner component that I have recommended through our budget planning is something that I plan on starting this next month, and asking budget personnel to go ahead and recommend council move on that. So there are two components of that. One is personnel, and the other is renovation of part of this building. And so plan on getting that started next month.
Awesome, thank you. And thank you for saying that, Adam, because I do want to clarify that was a citizen's complaint, not my own, but I'm thankful that I'll have something to report back. But yeah, I think knowing the amount of square foot of sidewalks that we do have to maintain, I think maybe we just need to work on that perception issue. I don't know if that would be an EDTA thing or a council thing, but yeah, somehow to post, did you know that Pryor has, X amount of miles of sidewalks, and this year we maintained or resurfaced X amount.
Right.
Which I'm not on social media, so that could be happening. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but
Well, some of that also goes to those citizens that do have complaints, participating actively and showing up at a street, meeting where they're discussing that and get those kind of details. But, okay, thank you.
Well, I would like to say that I would like to think that some of the citizens don't realize the many hats that the street department wears, or the park department wears, or whoever department it is, They're not only over sidewalks, they're over streets, they're over drainage. And I know they work well with MUB, and we got a good working relationship with them, and so you have that citizen come talk to me.
okay.
That's right, you need to just give us that name, we're gonna go talk to that person.
I will say, along with the financial report, since it kind of encompasses that, is to go back and talk about soccer. And talking about the hats that we don't realize that the park department or others wear. The park department provides a huge service with the soccer association in mowing that facility. It is a city park, but they mow that facility, and that has all of those groups that are coming in, the amount of positive comments that are being made from clubs that are coming from other towns of, wow, your fields look really good. This is grass, not weeds. This is grass, not dirt. There are some very large towns that have come in, Bartlesville and others, that have said, oh, these are nice fields. That is something that our city should be proud of, and that these groups should be commended to stepping out and doing.
Adam, you got the 5,000.
I know.
Okay.
I want another 5,000.
So the kudos to the park department
Yes.
and the street department.
yeah.
Also the golf course, because the monies that have been invested and reinvested in the golf course equipment, he doesn't keep that to himself at the golf course. He comes to our fields and he sprays, or he aerates, or does whatever he does with that equipment, and that's one of the reasons why they're improving quality.
So any other questions on financial review reports? Okay, our next item is economic development updates from Mayor Lees.
Well, my mind is full of economic development updates. I mentioned a little bit earlier in the meeting about grant funds that are becoming available and have been available for the last probably year and a half or 2 years. So part of that city planning component is identifying grants that we need, identifying grants that will help us, and then being able to go out and try to capitalize on those. So when I look at our city and when I look down the pike at what we might need, we need utilities development and rehabilitation, and Jared and his organization, that crew, I mean, they're doing an incredible job. They're planning forward, and I don't want to speak for you, Jared, but planning forward about understanding what the water needs are, and understanding what the electric needs are, and understanding what the sewer needs are, and what the gas needs are, and then seeing opportunities where they can move utilities to a particular development, and they may not move all the utilities there. They may move gas only, but there are opportunities there, and taking that forward look and taking those opportunities. So also with the city, I'm looking at different roads. We're going to be placing a new football stadium on 9th Street. Well, right now, there would be a 2-lane county road that would go east, and then there would be 9th Street that would go west, that would dump out at Elliott Street. But we have the ability over time to do some more planning, hence a city planner. Doing the work and planning new streets and roads that would be able to accommodate more of this traffic and more of this growth. So those are things that are they're in the planning stages. Things that are going on right now regarding economic development. The space is right across from City Hall. You've heard me speak about that, and that is all of those processes are moving forward. Also, processes out in north of town. Jared, where are you in a sewer development north of town and the interceptor going east?
We are approximately 80% complete, and the developer has started their sewer and water line plans as well, cutting the roads in, so they're working on phase 1, which is about 35 lots. On top of the 14 lots that they have in Stonegate right now that they are working on, or 13 lots, I don't know, I lose track.
15?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of lots going in. And then we also have a local contractor that has bought about 10 more lots off of another developer that's coming in, and he's going to build lots on those. So, there's a lot of movement going on right now.
There's also movement going on with the apartments out in the district off of 69A, and there's also properties that have come under contract for single-family dwelling in other properties in that area. So all of those things compute to our population base growing because of the housing. And then you've got there are some different retail things that are in the mix on 69 Highway that we've had some meetings about just recently. So that's about all I can say about that. But there are encouraging things that are happening, and I'd be very happy to answer any of your questions.
Any questions for Mayor? Jared, do you have anything to add?
No report.
Okay. The next item is adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Darla?
I'm sorry, I don't have my paper ready yet. Okay. I think we're at Miller. Miller?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Swordall? No, he's not here. Williams?
Yes.
Durr?
Yes.
Moore?
I think you could realistically show yes on all, on a motion.
I was asked to call the roll. Berger?
There you go.
See you guys next time.
And next time